So next up, we've got Nick Down from Yattendon Estate, and Nick is also the environmental lead for Velcourt. So Nick manages the farming enterprise at Yattendon, which is a cool 3,260 hectares, which is in a 5-year mid-tier countryside stewardship agreement that's really significant and taken 300 hectares of marginal land out. Looking at having a wide crop rotation, including winter and spring crops, and reducing the intensity of tillage and reducing reliance on synthetic inputs, as well as looking at partnership with a neighbouring farm to have the opportunity to begin reintroducing stock back into their systems. Yattendon Estate was one of the 4 farms that took part in the Leaf Resilient and Ready programme, so I know Nick very well from working with him on that, and is now a leaf demonstration farm. My comment about Nick is if you want something done, ask a busy person, and Nick is certainly that. So over to you, Nick, to talk a bit more about that.
Hi, thanks, Alice. And definitely Phil sort of set me up quite nicely to follow on with him. I can sort of talk about probably where Phil was 20 years ago. So I'm Nick Down. I'm the farm manager for Yattendon Estate. We're based just to the northeast of Newbury, down in Berkshire. A reasonably large-scale farming business, shall we say? And I very much set out with the ambition of, let's prove we can do this at scale. That comes with its own challenges, but we're definitely going to give it our best go. Reasonably large-scale. Pretty much all arable, combinable cropping. We used to have livestock on the estate. We used to have a dairy. We used to have pig herds historically. But naturally, over the years, they've all sort of eroded away. And I've been left with the arable business to contend with and how we develop that going forward. We've got some permanent pasture, particularly around the villages and the houses, some woodland pasture as well. A significant area of woodland dotted around the estate, so we've sort of got lots of islands all dotted around that give us some great things to build from. We're starting to look how we can join those together a little bit more. We also have a Christmas tree enterprise, and we talk about trying to make a farming business sustainable. Trying to make a Christmas tree business sustainable is a whole different ball game. As Alice said, we're sort of halfway through a countryside stewardship agreement. We've also got one of the initial sustainable farming incentive pilot agreements on one of our contract farms. And also over the last 3 years, we've been working to become part of the Leaf demonstration farm network. I've always been a member of Leaf through most of my farming career, so the opportunity to work with them more closely, has been absolutely fantastic, and provided a huge amount of support for us over the last few years, and particularly the journey that we've been trying to make. Challenges and aims. Where have we come from? Where are we going? What are we trying to achieve? I guess anyone who's ever been to Yattendon and been in that area and sort of looked at some of our soils, it's quite unique. I've been lucky enough to sort of farm around the countryside and farmed overseas. I've never sort of really come across anything like it before. We've got some reasonably light sandy loam soils. We've got some nice undulating chalk soils. Unfortunately, that only probably accounts for about 15% of my farmed area. Most of it is Carlston silty clay loams. Stone contents, I've got 30% there, but some of it is a little bit more than that. Some is sort of 40-45%. So half the time I'm essentially trying to farm a quarry. That comes with its challenges. And we've come off a history of heavy cultivation, lots of ploughing. We've been running a min-till system for a long time before I got there. I've been there for 6 years now. And a one-pass cultivator and a lot of horsepower was always the method that's been utilised. And that's kind of done its thing, but certainly not how we want to develop in the future. Our cropping diversity has always been quite limited. Again, as sort of livestock has come out of the system over the last 20 years, generally the state's had a pretty good typical rotation of wheat, barley, oilseed rape, and a few other things thrown on. But, like a lot of the farmers have done over the last 20, 25 years, the rotation has been simplistic. That's brought its issue with grass weeds. As we all know, driving around the countryside, it's a common problem. We're certainly not alone with that one. And again, as livestock's eroded away, our ability to be able to bring in organic matter and organic manures has become less and less and less. So, what could we do about that? Is that something we could address ourselves? And sort of in the background, we were starting to pick up some sort of, maybe slightly more unique, but, some local market opportunities that were giving us some quite good steers of how we could develop going forward. And we've got some quite nice things just starting to happen after probably working on this for 3 or 4 years now. As we all know, land use policy has been evolving in the background. We've sort of known this has been coming for a while now, go back to 2016. So we've had an insight of what's coming, what we need to do, how we're going to need to look at things differently. But I guess ultimately one of our biggest challenges, and particularly for me, managing for someone else, is how we maintain our business performance. A financially resilient business can also be an environmentally resilient business, and the two very much go hand in hand, and that's always at the forefront of our mind. Leading on for Phil, exactly the same thing. Sort of soil health is absolutely key to what we're trying to achieve, and particularly soil resilience. As I've said, our soils are quite unique. They're either very wet or they're very dry, and there kind of hasn't been a lot in the middle. So how we can address that, how we can make that more resilient, is right at the top of our priority list. How can we deal with, how can we make our soil more resilient to be able to cope with the weather extremes? Quite often as a farmer we get asked about climate change and what we've done to create climate change. We know all about it. We're living and breathing it every single day. So, we've got that fully in our lines of thinking. Naturally, with sort of 30-40% stone content, the less I can move that, the better. Every time we've been doing that, it comes at significant cost. So how we can develop our systems to move less soil, has multi-benefits for what we're trying to achieve. We want to be able to do that. We want to be able to bring different plants into our rotations, so we can build our organic matters, we can build our soil organic carbon contents. So plants are really at the key of that. How many different species can we get into our farming system in 1 year, over and above what we're already doing? Our sort of farming landscape is quite variable. Lots of small fields, awkward fields, surrounded by headlands. So our headland factor is huge. Over the last 25 years, we've sort of got plenty of compaction issues that we need to deal with. Probably asking plants to do everything from day one is a tough ask. But how we strike that balance is key to how we move forward. Definitely further down the line, plants will be key. Exactly how we maintain that, but how we can help that through our transition. Our natural predators, and already we can see sort of 3 or 4 years down this journey, less soil movement, greater cropping diversity, greater diversity of plants in our system. Naturally our predators are already starting to build. Slugs were always having oilseed rape in our rotation, as with many farmers. Slugs were always our number one issue. Build our natural predators, and suddenly, that gets a whole lot easier. Haven't used a slug pellet for a few years now, and certainly heading in the right direction. And I guess ultimately, as measurement and monitoring has come up lots of times this morning, how we monitor this, how do we actually learn from this, how is it relevant to what we're trying to do, and how is it driving our decision making is absolutely key. We want to do as much as we can on our farm. We want to keep it under our control. We want to be able to learn. So trying to keep this simple and having things that we can all use, or my team can use, that are all relevant to. So we're always thinking in the same way is absolutely key to what we're trying to achieve. To add more plants into our rotation, into our system, obviously cover and catch cropping was an easy way of doing that. Lots of people have been doing this for a while now. I sort of started out doing this probably 12, 13 years ago when we worked originally with DSV Seeds, and I had a really keen local guy who sort of lived next door to me, was always chasing me, you need to try this, you need to try do different things. And he really sort of got me into trialling these different things, what worked, what didn't. And our aims, pretty much tie in with what most are trying to achieve. protecting our soils, protecting our soil surface, particularly from excess rainfall during the winter. And the other add-on benefit that's really helped us is how we extend that autumn habitat for biodiversity. Trying to push the boundaries at the beginning and end of the season. We all know what happens in the middle of the year, but trying to extend that as long as we possibly can. And definitely our cover crops have really, really helped with that, particularly in the late autumn. We've kind of evolved into a system that we know works for us. So we sort of roughly have 3 different types of mixes that we use depending on where we're trying to use them, and we sort of come and sort of set up our own system that works for us. This has taken 10 or 11 or 12 years to get to where we are now to make this work, and it still evolves a little bit where we are on the farm. Generally like to try and keep things reasonably simple if we can, not overcomplicate. Do what works, use what works well for us and delivers the outcomes that we want to do. We're not about huge amounts of biomass. What we're trying to look after is that sort of top 4 inches of soil. Keep that living, keeping that friable, so when we come to establish the next crop, we've got it in the best condition we possibly can. I think me asking, to grow taproots 18 inches deep on some of my soils is a little bit away on the horizon yet. Never say never, but certainly, as we are today, we've got a long way to go to get to that point. Our crop establishment system is evolving. Our first choice option always is if we can drill a crop direct into what we've got left behind. That's always our starting point. But I've tried to maintain an element of flexibility in what we're doing. A poorly established crop with a poor root structure doesn't promote biomass. Is an unhealthy crop and is the one that requires the extra input. So actually getting those crops, whether it be a cash crop or a cover crop or a catch crop, getting that establishment right is absolutely key. And we definitely haven't got this right the whole way through, but we're learning. We're on the right journey. With our stone, sort of disc drills haven't worked particularly well for us yet. Generally cost us a lot of money, and we haven't got the best establishment. Every time we hit a stone, a disc rolls out of the soil. We don't get that seed-to-soil contact. So for us at the moment, tines work really, really well. It helps us deal with our stone contents, and we found... we sort of look down at the bottom right-hand corner there. If there's a different drill on the market, we sort of tried that, but we've ended up where we started 7 years ago with that same machine and developed with what we know, and be able to do different things with it, fit different points, different legs, basically have something that we can cover everything with to sort of keep that cost base down. We haven't ruled out sort of different forms of cultivation. We still have a shallow disc cultivator that we use from time to time. What we have learned over the years is, from a history of ploughing and heavy cultivation, we've ended up with quite uneven fields that, albeit look even to the eye. When you actually get out there and start to direct drill crops, you realise, they're not quite as level as what you think. So, that's still part of our system of how we get that perfect seedbed for our crops. And also we've still got some areas of compaction that we're dealing with. So, a low disturbance subsoiler is still part of our armoury that we're using. Hopefully we can use that less and less over time. But, it's just helping us to sort of improve our transition. So what we've done over the last 3 or 4 years, that has had some positive impacts. We're sort of cutting our horsepower down that we require, and we've significantly reduced our fuel usage. 4 years ago, sort of 43, 45 litres a hectare for our establishment. Last autumn, 2022, we were down to 25 litres a hectare. And when you're looking at 70, 80, 90p a litre across, 2,000 hectares of cropping, that's pretty significant cost savings as well. When we sort of started looking at measuring, and we spent a lot of time looking at sort of carbon audits, obviously the big one for us was nitrogen and getting our nutrition right. So we really wanted to understand exactly what we were doing, and using science in the background to making sure we were absolutely doing the right thing, making the right decisions, but still producing a quality product at the end. Our wheat is milling wheat growers, so to get those protein levels to make sure we hit the market is still absolutely key to what we do. So, really focusing on understanding what's happening, within our soils. We do a lot more measurement nowadays than what we were even 5 years ago. Really understanding what nitrogen is left behind in our systems, how much we retain with cover crops and catch crops, but also when that becomes available in the season. It's not just looking at a number, it's actually realising when that's going to come available to our crops. And sort of monitoring that throughout the season, and then using sort of grain analysis at the end of the season, almost like a post-mortem, so we know exactly, what decisions we've made, has it been the right one, has it been the wrong one, and exactly why. So our focus on nutrition has really been sort of key to make sure we sort of, still meet market specification, but we're bringing those total levels down every year. And we've been looking at lots of other things. We've been looking at how sort of inhibitors affect that, adding in biostimulants, really looking at individual plant health to make sure we're maximising that. Similar, we've been looking at living mulch and companion trials, and also how technology plays a part in that as well, and how we can really look at a very micro level exactly how we can reduce those overall levels of nutrition as we transition further. We sort of set out back in 2019 to look about how we might structure our business going forward and how we can use things to help our system transition. Environmental stewardship has really been at the sort of at the heart of how we've done that. So we've got sort of 14% of our farmed areas in stewardship now. And this has really opened some doors about how we've changed things in our system. Using 2-year legume fallows, to help us boost what was probably our poorer soil. How we've been able to bring livestock back into our system, setting up a partnership with a neighbour, using legume and herb rich lays. Getting that sort of collaborative spirit, working with people, has been key. Bringing in different sets of expertise, and also using some of the other options about how we connect our farm together. Get these nature corridors working effectively for us. And joining up the good things we've got on our farm. Sort of finishing off very quickly, sort of conscious time has got away from me quickly, but how we sort of measured a lot of this. We've done a lot of work looking at sort of carbon footprints. Making sure that every time we're making a decision, it's having a positive impact. And sort of then being able to benchmark that with our wider group, seeing where we were, how that was sort of fitting in, and where we sat with everyone else, and looking at that on a per hectare basis, but also a tonne basis. There's a lot of detail in here. I'm happy to chat about this later with if anyone's got any more questions on this. And where we're sort of heading to next, as I've said, we've still got an awful lot to learn, particularly around nutrition. So, we're looking at live and mulch trials at the moment, with establishing clover, so on a very, very similar journey. How we can reduce our reliance on herbicides, bringing in, mechanical weeding into our system. Again, understanding how exactly that fits our system and our soils. And then finally, to finish off, what have we learned, what have we gained, what's our sort of messages. And I think the key thing, for us has been, have a clear plan. What are we trying to achieve? How are we going to go about doing that? What's that going to be? How are we going to do that? Not overcomplicate it. Have some simple things that we want to work on. Mix it up, be prepared to try new things and sort of push the boundaries. Sometimes you need to push a little bit further than where you need to be to really learn those true lessons. Monitoring and measurement has come up lots of times this morning as well, but obviously every time we do something we want to understand exactly what's happening and what those impacts are. And I think the key one for me really is, don't be scared to ask for help. Lots of people are on this same journey. I've been fortunate enough to work with, lots of different people from lots of different organisations. Some you'd expect to see up there, others you probably wouldn't. But we're all on the same journey together. So we've been very, very fortunate, to be able to go on this journey together. And I think that sort of farmer to farmer learning is really, really key. That we all, we all learn from each other. And I'm very, very lucky that I work in an environment where I get to do that. So that's a slightly overrun snapshot view into what we're doing. Huge amounts going on. I'm going to be here all day, so if anyone has any specific questions further on and wants to know any more detail, then more than happy to sort of share what we've learned during the last 4 or 5 years.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Nick.